Hello folks and welcome to the Vertigo Tea Party, and let's try Democracy 3. We'll also be talking about the social engineering DLC. I'll put an annotation here to skip ahead to the social engineering DLC if that's all you want to hear about. This should be a relatively short video overall though. Democracy 3 is by Positech Games. The base game is available for $24.99. The DLC is $4.99. They both do support achievements, trading cards, Steam leaderboards, and the Steam Workshop, and there are several mods available already. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, as you probably already know, this is a country governing simulator, and you have several choices here to start with. You have United Kingdom, France, Germany, the United States, Canada, and Australia. So I will be picking the United States because, well, I'm an American, and it's the country I know best, even though it's not very good. So here you can choose your name, your party name, and the opposition party name. I don't think it matters. So we will, of course, be, delete this out, the Tea Party. Now, just for your reference, my Tea Party name has nothing to do with the American political Tea Party, just FYI. It was coincidence. You can also change your term length and your turn limits. There are some other options you can pick here, like hurricanes and earthquakes, which I've not run into those just yet. You can turn on compulsory voting, a monarchy, which would be interesting for the United States, and you can change the sliders for difficulty, innate socialism, political apathy, and innate liberalism. Now, I usually keep these on default. I definitely do not want to make them harder because I am not very good at running a country apparently. So let's go ahead and start. Now, this game, again, this video will be pretty short because I feel like this is one of those types of games that you'll know pretty quickly if you're interested in. So this gives you a quick summary of some of the main topics that are of issue for your country starting out. And again, these might be different for different countries. I have not tried other countries because I figured I would be even worse at those than I am at this. So here is where you are going to spend the majority of your time in Democracy 3. And it might seem overwhelming at first, and there's a lot going on here, but once you understand how things connect and how things affect each other, it makes sense. And one thing that I want to praise this game about is the UI. The UI flows very, very well. So what are all these icons? Well, white icons are policies. Here we have border controls, foreign aid, food stamps, let's see, which one is this? Unemployment benefit, etc. And if you click on these, it'll open a window, and I can change what the unemployment benefit is. I can even, well, I know I can't cancel. Well, theoretically, I could completely cancel the unemployment benefit if I wanted to. No, we do not want to actually apply those changes. Now, blue are statistics. So we have the oil price, the oil supply, we've got rail usage, etc., etc. And lastly, we'll have red and green icons. Red, as you can imagine, are bad. Green are good. And as you can see, I've only got one green. So that's a good start. Red indicates a problem that's going on. So we have pollution. We have a skill shortage. We have a drug addiction problem, apparently. But we do have technological advantage, which is nice. Now, you'll also notice when I highlight any of these that we'll get some arrows pointing to that icon. Those indicate, one, what is affecting this icon, and two, what this is affecting. So for example, we can see when we hover over tobacco usage, we can see that the GDP is having a positive effect or an increasing effect on tobacco usage. And we can see at the bottom right that the tobacco tax is having a negative effect on tobacco usage. So our GDP being higher increases our tobacco usage, and the tobacco tax causes less because people can't afford cigarettes, or maybe they quit smoking, or they're more inclined to quit smoking because of the tax. And our tobacco usage has a negative effect on our health. See, so it makes sense. And all these are split up. So you have this section is transportation, this is law and order, this is public services, so on and so forth. So in the middle, you have your various voter groups. Now keep in mind, any person can and probably does belong to multiple groups. And this is randomized behind the scenes. So you might have one person who just belongs to conservatives and farmers, and another person who's conservatives, farmers, youth, and an environmentalist. Now you can also see, and this might be a little hard to see on YouTube, but behind some of these, I'll do this. You can see kind of a gray bar to the left of parents and wealthy. It comes right up to the W. The gray bar indicates what portion of your population is in that category. And as you can probably guess, the red, yellow, and green indicators are how happy those people are with us. Now, the state employees, the retired, and patriots are thinking we're doing a really good job. The trade unionists and the liberals, not so much. And as with the icons, you can also hover over these and see what affects these groups. So self-employed are affected by sales tax, capital gain tax, corporate tax, and small business grants. Keep in mind, some of these connections are not direct. So for example, there might be something that affects, well, that's a bad example. Hold on, let me find something different here, because these are all policies. Actually, I guess, okay, it shows only, no. Okay, I was gonna say it only shows policies that affect them. But we can see here that oil prices are affecting motorists. Well, if something else affects oil price, that will in turn affect motorists. So it's complicated in that there is a kind of a domino effect where, let's say you increase corporate taxes, that might cause them, that might, and I don't know if this is actually accurate or not, but they might hire less people because they're having to pay so much in taxes, and then that might increase unemployment. So there's chains of things that you have to think about. And of course, you do want to be reelected, so you want to keep your people happy as well. Let's go through some of the various, actually, you know what? Let's do something actually interesting. Let's enact let's change a policy. Let's just find one at random here. You know what, let's get our money up. All right, you know what? Let's look at here. We got our income, expenditure, deficit, and debt. We're going into debt, and we're losing about $128 billion a quarter. So let's look and let's click on expenditure. As you imagine, when you click it, you get a pie graph, and it will tell you how much these various sections are costing you. And on the pie graph, it will show you just how big of a piece it's cutting out. Military spending is really hurting us. So let's click on that. And wow, we have the slider way maxed out for military spending. So let's go ahead and ease this off. Now, you can't just go and change every single policy that you want. If you see down here, this is your political capital. And we'll get into how you gain political capital exactly. But you can only change so much stuff as long as you have political capital. If you see here, it would cost us 9 political capital to raise military spending, which we actually can't do, and it would take us 19 to lower it. These are affected by, my understanding is these are affected by the types of people in your country. So if you have a lot of, let's say, conservatives and patriots in your country, like a lot, it's going to cost you more to lower this. If you had a lot less patriots, then, and it's actually patriots, I think, is the only one that this affects. So if you had a lot less patriots, this would probably be cheaper. I think that's how that works. So we are actually going to, we're going to go crazy, and we're going to drop it all the way to the bottom. Now, if you look at the top, you see the bars are sliding as I change this. And the light red and the light green show you where it's going to be after this policy is enacted. Now, we're changing up to ceremonial only, which is not a good idea, but we will save like $200 billion. And since we're just doing a short demonstration, it sounds like a great idea. So the patriots will like you less. The bar has moved far to the left. We will actually see unemployment will. Now here's where it gets a little confusing. Now here it looks like, oh, you're losing the red bar under unemployment. That's good. That's not how this works. A negative bar in unemployment means you have less unemployment, right? So this is actually a negative side effect of dropping your military spending. because there's less people in the military, therefore they're out trying to find jobs, and sometimes those jobs are not available. State employees also will drop. State employees some of this gets cut off. State employees membership will drop, and state employee income will also drop. The liberals, let's see. Liberals like it though. Liberals like it. So they will become neutral when it's ceremonial only. So let's go ahead and apply changes. It'll confirm. And the changes will take effect next round. Now, sometimes when you make a change, let me try to find one that will take a while. You can see if I try to change bus usage, there's a little 2 over here. That tells you how long it will take for this to take effect entirely. In other words, this will take 2 quarters. Every turn is a quarter of a year. So if I change the subsidized school buses, we would get a gradual effect, and then until the very last turn, which would be, again, 2 quarters from now. Some things take a very long time, and you might want to learn what those are and do them early on. The space program, for example, any change here, technology increases if we increase the funding to the space program, but it takes 16 turns for the full effect. And we also lose religious membership, which you may or may not want, depending on how you're setting up your country. But that takes 20 turns. Or, yes, 20 turns. So 4 whole years. Wait, that's not right. 5 years. Math is very hard. It'll take 5 years for this to take effect. Again, you'll get a gradual change, but you won't see the full effect of this for 5 years. So that's something you might want to consider when you're enacting your policies. Yes, I know I don't have enough policy or enough capital. Now let's quickly look at our menu screens here. Income is like the expenditures. It shows you where you're getting your money. Like half of our money is coming in from income tax. Charts, just general charts. I'm going to go over each one of these. Just show you that they exist and that you can check them out. Let's see here. This shows your overall time until the next election. So we have 16 turns until the next election since we've just started off. Now here's some of the menus. Intelligence briefing. Early on, this is not a big deal. However, if you continue to piss off one party over and over again, eventually the extremist groups will get angry with you, and if you continue to make them angry, or at least not appease them, they will try to have you assassinated. And I have been assassinated multiple times, so keep in mind those guys. Let's see, what do we have here? We have the polling. You can see how you do with various organizations. You can also click on them to kind of drill down into the environmental, so you can check the focus group, see what an individual person's opinions are. There's a lot of information here, for sure, and I feel like maybe one of the reasons I'm not very good at this game, at least so far, is trying to always drill down and check, okay, let's check the general motorist. You can see what things affect them. I don't tend to do that. I kind of operate at a very high level, and I think that's probably hurting me. You can see, again, you can go into focus groups for individual groups. Like, let's see, traditional values, alliances. You can check the Communist Party, again, see what they think about you. You can see how popular various policies you have are. So you can see in America, now keep in mind, again, depending on your country, some of these policies might be more or less popular, just depending on the culture of that country. So keep that in mind, but you can check those quickly at a glance here. You can see the changes that you have caused since you've become president or whatever it might be. This is kind of just a compass to kind of point where you are, I guess, every turn. So if you start making a lot of conservative capitalist choices, you'll get a lot of dots over here, which is actually where I tend to apparently fall a lot of the time. You can also enact new policies, like brand new policies. There's a lot of various interesting things in here, and we won't really go into them too much, but just to kind of show you a few of the base ones that are in the base game. You have like bus lanes, which you put money in, you dedicate various lanes in the road for buses, and the idea there is to get less people driving, cut back on traffic, and cut back on pollution. And let's see if I can pick another one. Let's find a good one. a junk food tax, so that foods like hamburgers, sodas, etc., there's an extra tax on those food. The idea being, one, it's an extra income for you, and two, to kind of push people away from eating and drinking those types of food. Obviously, a lot of people, like liberals, will not like policies like this. So, of course, you have to keep all of that in mind. There's the achievements there. Now, here is your board, your cabinet. This is how you get your political capital. If you look underneath each person, this shows you how much political capital they're giving you each turn. And each person has two groups that are sympathetic to this particular person. So for example, this person is sympathetic to the trade unionists and the farmers. Having this person in my cabinet at all makes those two groups a little bit more happy. So if you have one group that in particular really doesn't like you, one thing you might do is hire cabinet members who are in those groups. But keep in mind that effect is pretty small. Now, you can also fire these folks, and which also costs political capital, and replace them with someone else. Maybe someone who's either going to give you more political capital or has sympathies with certain groups that you either need sway with, or maybe that are more leaning towards the type of policies that you're enacting. Now, this is my first big complaint with the game, is I feel like the cabinets, and it's obviously not, but it feels random. Like no matter what I do, they always get angry, because over time they will give you less and less political capital until they just give you one per round, and they'll start complaining that they don't like their job. And if you leave them there, they'll just end up quitting if you don't fire them. So either way, they're gone. And the game tells you that if they get angry, you should try to enact policies that, you know, that would be for them, like, or that they would like. In other words, policies that are good for groups that they're sympathetic to. And I've tried that, and they still seem to be angry. And it's kind of a pain in the arse to reenact policies just to make your cabinet people happy. And what's really frustrating is that a lot of times the groups that they have sympathies with are totally fine with me, but yet they still hate their job. So I think that's the worst part. I think the worst part is those groups being happy with me, or at least neutral, and they're like, I hate my job, and basically saying the policies that you're enacting go against what I like. But every single cabinet member I ever get eventually goes that route. So I honestly don't understand how you're supposed to keep those people happy. And to make it worse, you've only got so many potential cabinet members. So just firing them and replacing them not only is expensive with cabinets, or with your political points, which name I just forgot, you eventually run out of potentials. So it's, yeah, I don't understand how that works. And so obviously I'm missing something, but that's a frustrating part of the game, honestly. Let's see, parties. You can check the parties here. Now you can see basically the more people, I guess, that you are making happy, the more people are likely to join your party, and then of course vote for you when it's time to be voted in. And let's see, the reports are not active yet. So we've only got 6 political capital left. So let's go ahead and skip on to the next turn, the next quarter of the year. Turns always go pretty darn quickly. Again, you can see the important stuff. Crime is pretty darn bad. Now, here's where you'll get your quarterly report. There's almost always some kind of new law that someone is asking you to either pass or not pass. In this case, it's a debt protection law. I would like to see a little bit more randomness on this. Unless I've just gotten very unlucky. It seems like I always get the same laws being put forth to me in the same order. So for example, I get debt protection law. I think I always get debt protection law first. If I don't get it first, I get it very early on. So if you look at this, we have 2 options. We could say it's debt collection agencies have been in the news because of the aggressive methods they are using to extract payment from people who owe large sums of money. These debt collection agencies provide credit to people whom larger, more respectable companies will not lend money. A law is proposed to limit the ways in which agencies can operate. So we can either limit their activity, or we can just allow them to do whatever they want. We're just going to allow them to operate however they want. And obviously there's going to be positives and minuses to anything that you do. You always get an economic forecast. The global economy is doing good, which has a positive effect on our GDP, which is a good thing since a lot of things revolve around our GDP. A lot. See, one way or the other, either directly or indirectly affected by our GDP. Our credit rating is not good. It's BB. So we need to try to bring that up. Polls were at 19%. Not surprising for the very first turn. That kind of just happens. The Traditional Values Alliance is mounting an online campaign against the government. Not too worrisome just yet, but we need to keep an eye on that. And our cabinet report. This reports on our cabinet members. The loyalty of your ministers can best be described as loyal. Their effectiveness is generally considered to be passable. Great. Now, another thing that's important about your cabinet is their experience affects how quickly and how effectively they carry out your policies. So remember how I said earlier how some policies take a while to enact? And of course now I can't find one. Yeah, so they take 8 and 12 quarters. If this guy was more experienced and more just good at his job, these would be enacted quicker. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind when balancing all of this. So this basically just goes on and on as you try to keep as many people as possible happy. And that's a pretty tall order. A lot of things come right back to your income, and it's very difficult, at least for me so far. I haven't found like the trick, but it's been very difficult for me to make sure that I'm making money, but at the same time promoting the overall health of our country, right? So it's been difficult, which, that's a good thing. If I figured it out immediately, then there'd have been no challenge. And I think this game has a lot of interesting potential if you're really ready to sit down. It's definitely, unless you're just really damn good at these types of games, I don't think it's a game you can just sit down and quickly figure out like the trick and it's, you just roll over and win. And I don't think that the goal of this game is just to win. It's partially to try different things and see if you can make them happen. Like, of course, one of the things you'll want to do is create your own political utopia, and not to get into politics, but for example, what I might try to do is limit as many laws as possible. No abortion laws, no drug laws, let's see, minimal taxes as much as possible. Probably no sales tax, no. Also, I would be very science focused, no creationism in schools. I would focus on science education, things of that nature. So it would be interesting to try to create your own political utopia, but I think it would be fun to try to do other things too. So for example, make America, very conservative, ban abortion, creationism taught in schools, not a whole lot of money spent towards science, most of that money being spent towards things like the military and, other things of that nature. And then of course, vice versa, where you have very minimal military, but you have really, really good health, government health care, things like that. So I think it'd be fun to try different things, and especially go to different countries and try to maybe go against the grain of what that country is set for, and say, can I turn this country to a totally different direction, just as, your own personal challenge. So that's Democracy 3. I'm going to cover the DLC here in just a second. So, but yeah, that's Democracy 3. I think if you're really going to honestly think you're going to sit down and kind of learn this game and find out what works, I think that this game is worth looking at. I think the $25 price tag is a little bit high for what it is, because it's kind of weird, because it's deep and it's shallow kind of at the same time, right? It's like, if I'm in America and I say, you know what, I want to go to healthcare and I want, excellent universal healthcare, I just move a slider, say apply changes, and that's all I have to do. Now, anybody who lives in America or is aware of our politics at all knows how crazy it was with the whole Obamacare and all that. So it does take a lot of the kind of wrestling with Congress and all of that out of it. But there is still a lot going on insofar as trying to plan out a strategy. Says, okay, we need to get ourselves economically stable, but at the same time, meet certain needs and what have you. So there's depth there to it. And again, if you're going to sit down and really put some time into it and think that you're the type of person who would be interested in creating different types of governments just to see if you could make them work and in different types of countries, definitely check it out. And like I said, there's also mods that have added things, like added different countries. There's one I saw that added, it said it had legalized prostitution, but that's actually in the game. You can legalize prostitution. So I'm not quite sure what it changed. It might have changed the modifiers. I don't know. So those mods are out there. You might want to check on the Steam Workshop to see what. Now let's talk about the social engineering DLC, and this won't take very long. Now, I watched the video of the game creator for Positech Games, which my understanding it's pretty much just one guy who's made this game. Is that he wanted to add policies that you could implement that weren't as direct and were more trying to change the overall culture of the country, right? A lot of these other things, such as, science education and, income tax changing and banning or allowing abortion, things like that. Those are pretty direct things. He wanted to give you guys, or give us, some tools where we say, okay, currently we're this type of nation, but I kind of want to push more people this way. So for example, this country, as you can see, there's a lot of commuters and there are a decent amount of motorists. You can see by the gray bar, it's like half, well, almost half of the bar is motorists. So it's like, you know what? Motorists cause a lot of issues. Traffic, and there's also, of course, traffic and pollution. So it's like, you know what? I want to kind of push people more towards maybe biking, right? So you go to transport, and there's some new things in here so that you can promote bicycling. So you have bicycle subsidies. It says, to encourage people to switch from car to bike, financial motivation is sometimes needed. By introducing bike subsidies, it will now be easier and cheaper for people to buy bikes. And this will result in more people actually using a bike instead of driving a car or staying inside, boosting the health of the citizens. So not only do you cut down the number of people driving, you also slightly boost overall health. There's another cycling thing here, a cycling campaign, again, to try to get more people to move from being motorists to cycling. Now, the base game does have some things like that, but he tried to add more subtle changes, again, to kind of, instead of laws that you're just throwing down, trying to change, again, the culture and the thought process and the that's the word I'm looking for, the actions of your people. So I think that's interesting. I think that could add another fun twist to, let's say, it would be awesome if you could make America, instead of being very religion based and very conservative, you started to maybe push it more towards more science based and more liberal or whatever, and or whatever another version of that would be in a different country. So that is the DLC, and it's like things like this, city farms, so that one, you encourage more people to become farmers, and it actually, I think, increases health, I think, as well, because it gives people more fresh produce, I think. But yeah, that is the DLC, the social engineering. If you've already playing this game, the DLC is only $5. I would say it'd be worth picking up for sure. I also did do a test, and if you have a existing game, you can actually just pick up your existing game, and as long as you have that DLC, the DLC will fit right in. So I was actually able to play a game that I had already saved and just start throwing in these new policies that the game had done. There's not just new policies too, there's new actions that happen. I've never had a event happen. An event can be, I don't know if earthquakes count as events, but events are things that happen and they're not totally random. For example, I heard that you could have like a military whistleblower. So if you maybe didn't have very much military spending, which I don't, then you might have a whistleblower, and that might hurt your relations with the Patriots and whoever else supports the military. But I have not had any events yet. And I think it's cool that they're not totally random, that they are somewhat influenced by your policies, even though I'm sure there is a random element to it. Now, the last thing I want to check out here is the options. There's some things that you can turn on and off here. Obviously, you have the sound volumes. Now, some of these I think are pretty cool. Dilemmas, I think those are the events. Occasional dilemmas in the quarterly report. You can turn those off or on. Assassinations, if you're starting off, I would suggest turning assassinations off. I have been assassinated I don't know how many times as I try to learn the game. Randomized start. That was a simulation to randomize the game for the data for new games, which I think is good. Once you feel like you've got a handle on the game and maybe some of the countries are getting a little boring or stale, I think it's a good option to be able to turn that on. Political capital, enable the need for political capital to carry out actions. Now, obviously the game is going to become way easier if you turn that off, but it could be just a fun sandbox. I'm going to just do everything I possibly can as a fun side thing. Political honeymoon, a high level of political capital when first elected. Autosave, that's self-explanatory. Transition, fancy transition between screens. And the leaderboards. I haven't really looked at the leaderboards because I'm terrible and I don't want to see how terrible I am. So that is Democracy 3 again by Positech Games. The base game is $24.99. The DLC is $4.99. You can find those on Steam. I will be putting a link in the description below to both the official page and to the Steam page if you want to check them out. Thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this covering games that you may not have heard of, make sure to subscribe. Leave comments. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if you've tried this game yourself, what do you think about it? Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.